Ladies and gentlemen, episode 30 of Full Moon Fridays may or may not be the last Full Moon Friday after the travesty of a film we watched today. I don't know. This is Trancers 6, finishing up the adventures of Jack Death in the Full Moon universe. I forgot to mention, Steve said that we record these in July, or we're recording these in July, so these won't actually be on the channel until December. But Trancers 4 and 5 leave Tubi in 4 days or 5 days from here, so you may or may not have an opportunity to see Trancers 4 and 5. I just want to throw that out there.
Other people have uploaded them to YouTube for free, and they're not uploaded by Full Moon. So other people have been like, "Yeah, this is garbage. The world needs to see this," and they put the whole movie on YouTube.
Yeah.
Full Moon is apparently not copyright claiming these. Like, whatever.
I have Trancers 6 playing in the background right here, and you just saw Tim Thomerson's face. That's all you'll see of him. Watch
God.
Trancers 6 this way. Don't actually play it, because we're going to talk. This is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. I think. I mean, it is.
Brutal.
It's a thing. It's a thing.
Fucking brutal.
We came out of Trancers 5 very depressed. We did not like what we saw. Borp, I'll throw it to you. Going into Trancers 6, how are you feeling about it? Did you think it could get any worse? Did you think it could get any worse?
No, I was actually thinking that I was going to enjoy this one a little bit more than 5. So I was like cautiously optimistic, because this looked really dumb in a way I could maybe appreciate.
Okay. Steve, what were your thoughts going into Trancers 6? Were you regretting your life choices yet?
Yes. I had no excitement whatsoever for this. I tried watching it, and I'm not going to talk about how they do this now, but when I got to the part and I saw how they brought Tim Thomerson into the movie, I turned it off. I started this movie on I started this movie on Sunday, July 21st. I finished it yesterday, July 22nd. I had to watch this movie in 4 parts to get through it, and I watched it on YouTube, so that's with watching it at 1.5 speed to try to get through it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing else better just to rip the Band-Aid off and dive into it, Steve. So, talk to us about Trancers 6.
All right, so there's a guy that we find out his name is Jennings, and he's in the future, and the way the movie is edited, it looks like he's just having visions of a woman like on the ground, and another woman is on top of her trying to stab her. Apparently, he was just watching this on a screen somewhere, but it's not shown on a screen. It just, again, it looks like he's having like psychic visions. And he's in the future. He immediately recognizes, oh hey, that's Jack Death's daughter. If she dies in the past, then Jack Death is going to get wiped out. And so he contacts Jack Death and says, Jack, I'm going to send you to the past. You're going to go down the line into your daughter's body. Well, here's how he has the conversation. He contacts Jack Death, and he's like, Jack, I'm sending you down the line. And we get like a close-up scene of Jack Death from
on a television screen.
On a television screen, like a close-up scene of Jack Death on a television screen from like Trancers 2 saying, what are you talking about? You can't give me orders. And then Jennings says another thing, and then we cut back to the television screen, and now it's like a shot of Jack Death from like Trancers 3 answering the question. And the conversation goes on like this for like 2 minutes, and it's like this man Jennings having a conversation with stock footage of Tim Thomerson, and in every cut, his hair is different because every line comes from a different movie. It is, oh my god, it is so fucking bad.
It's like your heart sinks. Your heart sinks at that point, because you're like, all right, they're not even trying here. Like this is not even going to be watchable. in many ways.
But it's such a baffling choice too. Like, why not make that a phone call or like just have a photo on screen? Because cause you could just take the audio clips and then it would be like, oh, well, obviously he's not in the movie, but like that would at least it would
They
have a
needed it.
different. Yeah.
They needed to get his face in there so they could put it on like the movie poster or something like
Do you
that.
think Tim Thomerson got paid for this? Like, did he have to give them his blessing? I
I
hope he
have
got
I
money
have
for
some
this.
stuff to read about Trancers 6, but we'll get there. I don't think he
Oh
got
yeah,
compensated for this at all. No. Helen Hunt
okay.
appears in this.
Yeah.
Like
In a
in a photo, right?
on
Yeah,
wall.
right. A
Yeah.
photo. She's looking at a photo.
So, anyways, Jennings has this conversation with the ghost of Tim Thomerson from Christmas Past, and he tells Tim Thomerson, "Oh, hey, yeah, your daughter is going to be murdered. Remember that little girl you saw in Trancers 3? That was actually your daughter, and Helen Hunt just didn't want to tell you. But she's gonna die, and if she dies, then you can't be born. So hey, just FYI, in case you haven't connected the dots, you were in the past banging your great 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 grandma. It's
No,
so
that is something I will at least give the filmmakers props. Is probably too strong of a phrase, but they attempted to try to link this back to a previous film in a way that at least made some sort of sense. Because I remember when we were talking Trancers 3 and that girl answers the door, we had the discussion, well, is that his daughter? And they never really explain it in Trancers 3. At least here, they were trying to be like, all right, we're ignoring 4 and 5. I don't even think they mentioned anything in 4 and 5. We're ignoring that completely. We are going to try to tie it back to part 4 in at least some logical way. I
yeah,
appreciated that attempt.
but they also like kind of fuck with their continuity even more because they decide to send his consciousness back down the line, even though they now have fully functional time machines, or Tim Thomerson could have just gone back there. But
I
we don't
take
talk
back
about that.
everything I said.
We don't talk about that. So, anyways, Jennings just like, yeah, hey, we're doing it now, and so Jennings pushes a magic button, which just like instantly teleports. Like, there's a scene that you see a few times where it's like Jack Death's body on just like a table, and like I couldn't tell, like, was
It's
that?
not Tim Thomerson.
Yeah, as I say,
No,
was
it
that a
doesn't.
body double, or was that a shot from another movie and they green screened Jennings
No,
into it?
It
I don't
that
doesn't
was
know.
some.
look like Tim Thomerson at all.
No, that's not Tim Thomerson at all. It's like when Ed Wood had to get the fake dude for Bela Lugosi when Bela Lugosi died and it used a chiropractor or whatever. It's a stunt Tim Thomerson.
Okay. Well, Jennings pushes a button that magically teleports not Tim Thomerson to a table, and also then magically just instantly like teleports his consciousness back into his daughter. His daughter works at like an observatory, and she sees like some meteors falling, and she tries to talk to her boss, and the boss just like blows him off, or blows her off, like, I don't care about your stupid meteor story. But then Jack Death enters his daughter's body, and he is very disappointed in his daughter because she is like a super vegan, like tofu granola girl. He goes down to like the parking garage for her apartment and sees like what he thinks is like a classy car, and he's like, oh yeah, that's my girl. And he pushes like the remote lock, and he hears a sound coming from behind him, and he turns around, and there's just this tiny little sedan with flower stickers all over it. He's very disappointed in his daughter's life choices.
This humor
But
is extremely 2002. It's the most
yes,
2002 humor.
Yeah, I will also
yes,
say, like we talked about the actress who played Shailene being bad in 4 and 5. This actress, awful. She is
yes,
so bad, and we're with her the entire way.
yep.
It's,
We don't see Tim Thomerson again after that stock footage conversation he had.
yeah.
So Tim Thomerson, Jack Death, is in his daughter's body, and so he kind of sort of kind of not starts going by Joe Death when people ask for his name because his daughter's name is Josephine. And so Jennings comes back. Jennings sends his own consciousness back down the line. And there is a scene. I did laugh at one scene where, like, there's a knock at the door, and Joe Death opens it up, and in walks a woman who, I don't know, like, she's dressed like a stripper or like a hooker maybe. And so Jennings walks in and like introduces himself like, yeah, hey, I'm Jennings. Turns out my great 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 grandma was a hoe. I did laugh at that. That got a laugh out of me.
And then in the credits, she's listed as Hooker Jennings, which I found.
Hooker Jennings. That's the best part of the movie right there. It was like that credit. Anyways, Hooker Jennings is like, okay, start investigating Trancers, and I don't even know how they determined the Trancers were linked to Josephine's job, but they're linked somehow. So Joe Death, goes to work and then goes to her boss and it was like, tell me all about the Trancers, and he's like, that's fucking stupid, you're fired. And so she's going to
That's what happens. That's literally what happens.
the whole time, by the way, like Joe Death is like hitting on women. So there's like the who we learn to be the main bad guy, like his secretary is a attractive woman, and Joe Death is like, oh yeah, you got a nice ass. So it's very like awkward. Like
They're
Jack
trying
Death,
to do the thing with what was the guy's name in 1 through 3 where he went back into the girl's body.
McNulty.
McNulty, yeah, they're trying to do the McNulty thing with Jack Death, because McNulty would go back and like, hey, like telling Helen Hunt how sexy she looks and stuff like that. But we've seen it before and we've seen it done better, and this actress cannot pull any of this stuff off. Like she just,
It's like it's this tiny little woman trying to put on like this like kind of like stereotypical like noir detective accent slash voice, and
smoking cigars and stuff. It doesn't
yeah,
work.
and it just does not work at all. So anyways, like she's got fired, so she's about to leave the building, and so this nerdy employee goes up to her, and at first I thought the nerdy employee was going to hit on her, but he just turns into a trancer and tries to kill her, which she stops. She shoots him, and then she's like, tell me everything you know, and he's like, your threats don't work on someone who doesn't care if they die, and so he pushes her off, and he jumps out the window, and this is like one of the worst special effects I have ever seen in a movie. So it's a shot. It's like he's inside a building and he runs and climbs through a window, and then we cut to an outside shot of just a random building, and there's just this little figure of a man that's just been like superimposed over the shot, just like falling down towards the ground while screaming.
We need to splice that in right here so people can
actually. Yeah, you're editing, so go for it.
It's dying.
It's incredible.
It is.
It's real bad.
I was howling, like I was like scream laughing at this. It is so bad.
Yeah. There's a reason for that, which I'll get to. Yeah, there's a reason.
Okay. Well, then Josephine goes to I don't know, like there's a guy that works a scientist that works at the observatory, and Joe Death, or I guess, realizes that he's connected to this. Somehow the Trancers are connected to this meteor shower, and so he's working at the observatory, and Joe Death goes to speak with him, and they kill some Trancers. This is where of all the things that don't make any sense in this movie, I'm really unclear what the rules for Trancers are in this movie, because sometimes she shoots them and they just fall to the ground and die. Other times she shoots them, they fall to the ground, and after a couple minutes they just get back up, and like nothing. Like some Trancers are just like super Trancers for no well explained reason. Like there's a Trancer that gets shot in the head through his eyeball, and so like the rest of the movie, like his eye is missing because he took a bullet to the head. Completely fine. Meanwhile, other Trancers just get like shot in the chest and they're immediately dead and singed. I have no idea. Like some Trancers just have extra durability for no explained reason. But anyway, Joe Death talks to a science guy at the observatory. They talk about the meteor shower. I think the deal maybe is Joe and this scientist know that this meteor fell to Earth somewhere, and like Josephine's old boss was covering it up. But then Josephine gets kidnapped. And who
It's
does
so
she get kidnapped by? She
story's
gets
so
she
stupid.
gets she gets kidnapped by the main bad guy's secretary, who has a great ass, and also the fucking hot dog vendor that's working outside her work. Like, the hot dog vendor is one of the main bad guys in this movie.
the
So
way
she gets
the way they introduce him, also, like, they have had one conversation, and it's when Joe Deaf orders a hot dog, and he's like, "Oh, I thought you were a raging vegan. This is very unlike you." And then that scene ends. That's the introduction to the villain.
yeah.
It's terrible.
Like, secretary and hot dog
So
vendor are
bad.
the bad guys for this movie. So Joe Death gets captured, and there's like an hour of this movie where she is just sitting in cells having conversations with people to like try to tell people about what's going on with the plot. There's one guy named Mark, and like he looks like he's maybe going to be Joe's like confidant or partner, but you find out he's actually a spy and he's giving secrets to the secretary. Uh, like, I mean, I guess what's going on is they found a meteor and they hook up a laser to the meteor, and the laser shoots PlayStation 1 lightning bolts at people, and if you get hit by one of these lightning bolts, you get turned into a trancer, which can then be controlled by Secretary Lady and her evil boss and the hot dog vendor. Am I wrong?
No, you're correct.
No,
uh,
it's
Yeah.
so like the bad guys are like basically like capturing homeless people and runaways and like forcibly trancing them to I guess have an army of slaves. So they go and capture the scientists at the observatory because they believe that um, like they can get different effects from this meteor. Like right now, when they trance people, the trancers are just immediately like violent, just violent and aggressive. There's scenes where the bad guys drive trancers to like I guess rich people's homes and just let the trancers go in and kill the rich people. So there's a very like eat the rich theme going on in this movie. The trancers are the underprivileged and they're taking back power from the rich people that are holding them down. Actually, I take that back. I said scenes plural. There's one scene where that happens. Uh, so I don't know what to say. Like they bring the scientists back and they're like, okay, um, start doing stereotypical science things because we think this meteor has the power to make people like docile rather than super aggressive and violent. And it
I like that
works.
all the vials have a different color, like different
Yes,
brightly colored things.
there's
Green and
there's a there's
red
a
and yellow and orange.
yeah, there's a different color vial of water plus food coloring for different effects.
Yeah.
But they basically Josephine is captured for the majority of this movie. Jack Death, Joe Death is like very much like part four is just not a part of her own movie. She is sitting in a prison cell for like or a makeshift prison cell for so much of this film. Um, but eventually the she's going to get tranced, and there's a couple of times where the bad guys try to trance her. The first time she uses her long second watch to dodge the laser beam or the PlayStation 1 lightning bolt, and no one notices, so they think
Yeah.
she's been tranced
It's
but she's
so
not.
weird. It's this so
uh
weird. Like,
yeah,
you
Well,
would.
it's like they can't register. It's in real
she just
time,
moves
whatever. It
so
just
fast.
yeah,
Yeah.
it moves. So it's like the Flash or something like that. You just don't even realize that the person left.
But isn't it 10 seconds goes to 1 second? So they're like, I don't. Okay, whatever. It's not important. Let's
It
not
she
talk
doesn't
about
she
matter.
she
No.
Yeah.
she uses super speed to dodge the lightning bolt, so they think she's tranced when she's not. Eventually, she
Then she loses
exposes herself.
what little personality this bad actress has. Then she loses it completely because she's like, "Okay, let me follow you," and she has like this monotone delivery. I'm like, you just made it worse. Like it's your acting was so bad before, but now it's gone to a whole nother level. Ugh. I feel bad for
So
this
now,
lady. I do.
so then
It's not her fault.
Joe Death continues to sit in a prison cell for a significant portion of the movie, and then the scientist shows up and is like, "Okay, I'm going to I'm going to rescue you now." So they hatch some plan, and so the finale of the movie, like I feel like I'm skipping over a lot, but nothing happens during the middle of this movie.
Yeah.
The finale of the movie is they're going to try to trance Joe Death again, and supposedly the scientist has fixed things to where they can get different effects from this meteor other than like making people hyper aggressive trancers. Um, and when they're about to transfer, he just like I don't know, like splashes some liquid on the secretary, which makes her freak out. And that's Joe Death's cue to start fighting back. And so they fight back and they win. And the end of the movie. I mean,
Well,
I'm going to talk about here. Like,
That's
you
basically
do
it.
get the scene like the scene that Jennings saw in the future, which is where it turns out like this
Yeah,
evil
the stabbing.
secretary lady was going to trying to stab her. Like we get that scene, and Josephine wins. The scientist gets killed. Like earlier in the movie, he made a magic healing potion, but he apparently only made one dose because when he gets stabbed in the back, he doesn't drink any of it. So he dies, and this actress has this awful line where supposed to be this like somber dramatic line, and it's something like, why is it after every mission there's just one too many bodies? And she's very sad that this scientist has died, but she cannot pull it off in any way, shape, or form. Um, there's one scene I liked where like the deadly like transfer ray is now just shooting actual laser beams. And so Joe Death kills the evil secretary by shooting her in the head, and her head explodes. I like that shot. But so now Josephine is just wait, no, she leaves the camp, and then the meteor just explodes for no explained reason. Eh, so the meteor is done with, and so she goes back to Joe Death goes back to her office to confront Josephine's boss, and the boss is like doing an evil monologue. Oh, you'll never stop me. For even if you stop me, there's 100 of me out there, and we'll be back. And Josephine shoots her boss, and then her boss turns into an alien and then fades away. And then the final scene of the movie is Hooker Jennings talking to Joe Death, and they're like, "Well, what are you gonna do now? You saved your daughter, mission accomplished." And Joe Death is like, no, like I now know there are other Trancers and aliens out there. Like my daughter will never be safe until I kill them all. So now, like Jack Death learned nothing the first time around. He is now going to co-opt his daughter's body for an extended period of time.
Yep.
Uh,
But he could
and
just
then
go back up the line, get in his time travel machine, come back and interact with her, and they could go on adventures together. That's how it should go.
it could, but they don't do that. There's also like I guess like the actual like last image of this movie is the actress looking directly into the camera while a voiceover plays, and she's like, "I'm Jack Death. I'm a Trancer hunter. I'm awesome." And then you get credits, and I don't even know what to say about this movie.
This movie's fucking bad.
it's
This
really
is the worst.
it's
ahead, Bart.
really bad.
It
Gonna
took me
be. I'm
4
gonna
times
play.
to watch it.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a little bit because I
Okay.
have
Please do.
I
I have
have
nothing
some
else to
fun.
talk
I had
about.
some fun with this movie that I absolutely did not have with 4 and 5.
Okay.
So there are two things here that really kind of made this movie watchable to me. One is this lead performance is so incredibly bad. It's like borderline surreal at times. And it's like never did a joke land because the script was good or that the performance was good, but it was just so like it's so just absurdly delivered that I was like just enamored with it. I looked this actress up, and to your point, Matt, I do not think everything here falls on her shoulders because
Oh, I don't blame her.
no, she's doing a thing, and at no point did anyone say like, "Hey, this isn't working. We're doing another take." There's no
Right.
other takes in these movies, but she acted in one other movie, "Sexual Intrigue" from 2000, a
Ah,
Skinemax film. And you know
there
So
what?
you
this
go.
this is her last. This is 2002. So this was her last film.
Yep,
So she got the hint after this movie.
I
Maybe
guess.
she was just like, "Wow, I'm getting out of the industry entirely at this point." in
Yeah,
time."
and so that was just I don't know that performance just kind of propelled me through this because it's so bizarre. And then the second part, which Matt, I think you're going to speak to as to why this is, the special effects are so bad. Like
Yeah.
it's some of I've definitely seen worse, but it's some of the worst special effects I've seen in quite a while.
Even that head explode. That head looks so fake. It looks
It,
so
at least
ridiculously
it was.
fake.
I appreciated it was at least a practical effect. Like it
Yeah.
was obviously like a fake head that they actually blew up. So I
Yeah.
mean, they should have thrown someone out the window.
They tried. They
And
tried.
yeah, so I feel like for me there were enough moments here where I was like laughing, and not just like chuckling, but like straight up laughing at the movie, that I actually, and I'm kind of glad I watched this one.
I definitely
Okay.
laughed at the window scene.
Yeah. My kind of thoughts on this is I didn't laugh at all through any of it. I thought this was just so bad, and I am somebody like I don't blame actors for bad performances because the actors are only doing what they're either told by the director to do or they're doing something the director hasn't identified how bad it is and hasn't told them, and so they're just running with it like, okay, it's actually the director's fault when there's a really bad performance something. So again, I don't blame this lead actress for any of this, but man, it is so bad. It was hard to watch, like all the way through this, everything she was doing, it was hard to watch. It was so cheap, so cheaply made. The only thing I can give it credit for is I do feel like they were trying to link this to some Trancer stuff. Did they fail at it? Yes. But at least it wasn't 4 and 5 where they were like, it seemed to have nothing to do with the Trancers franchise whatsoever. They at least attempted something here. Um, but yeah, I did not like this. This is one of the worst things I've ever actually seen, I think, in my entire life. I mean, it was just, it looks like just some sort of student, hey, we're fans of Trancers, let's go for $5, let's go and make a Trancers movie, and throw it up on YouTube. It just didn't feel like a real movie, didn't feel like anything. The disrespect to Tim Thomerson, that seemed to be here. And when I mentioned some of the stuff, the details of the making of this, it'll make more sense, the context of it. But as a viewer just watching it, no. Steve, you got any final thoughts you want to say about this before I get into the making of this movie?
This is it. Like we found the worst movie. Like of all the things we watched on Full Moon Fridays, this is the worst. I would watch the Puppet Master Clip Show movie 1,000 times before I
That's
ever sat through Transfer 6 again. Like
Warp. You
this
disagree with that?
is
No, 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 I would watch this over a lot of
no,
Puppet Master films.
Okay.
no.
Okay.
This
So this
is
this
the worst.
this is worse than all the subspecies stuff too that you saw, Steve.
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I'm thinking in my head like like Mortal Kombat 2, you've got the tower with Shao Kahn at the top. Like this movie is up there, and now I have to wait for another Full Moon movie to be so bad that it challenges the top of this fighting tower. Um, this is the worst. Like this is like irredeemable.
Okay.
I hated it. Hated every
I'm
part of this.
I'm gonna read some just some facts about this movie because I think the creation of how this was made is way more entertaining than the actual movie itself. Obviously, Jay Welfel had some information on his. I mean, I don't know if he directed this or what, but he had some information about this on his website, which I grabbed. And he says the problem was that Transfer 6 was being done non-union, which was another thing that kept Tim Thomerson out of the film because obviously he's a SAG actor. You can't work on non-union films. There was no post-production, Well, 2 weeks, if you want to call it that. What happened was that Blockbuster Video, the all-important video store in the United States at that time, passed on the film without seeing it on the grounds that they didn't want science fiction films. How do I know they didn't watch the film? Because the screen or DVDs sent to them were defective and the film wasn't even on them. Full Moon told us, quote, if Blockbuster had told us that up front, we never would have made this film, unquote. So post was stopped, more than finished, and a cut of the film that was not mine went out with rush sound effects and no extras. So they just kind of threw out. They didn't even bother to finish doing the effects on this, which is probably why the guy falling out looks so fucking horrible. It was a placeholder sort of thing, and they just kind of threw it out there. Tim Thomerson agreed to do the film on the condition that his scenes be shot in Mexico outside of SAG jurisdiction. But after the 9/11 attacks, the Mexico portion of the shoot was canceled. Tim Thomerson visited the set occasionally to consult actress Zette Sullivan on playing Jack Joe before shooting. His advice was to watch movies with Steve McQueen and act like him, only more pissed off. But here's some interesting, again, from this book. It came from the video aisle. I'm just going to read through this a little bit, so just follow along. It's like a page and a half of this, but it gives you the full context here. The author says, and perhaps the clearest evidence of the difficulties Charles Band was suffering during this period involving the creation of movies rests in the details of the making of Trancers 6. Now, one has to remember that alongside Ted Nicolau's Subspecies franchise, Trancers was considered by Full Moon to be its gold star premium product, a franchise that, unlike the more lucrative but artistically shaky Puppet Master series, had enjoyed fan loyalty and a certain amount of grudgingly positive notices from many a genre critic. So how does one turn a highly thought of, if inconsistent, series into one deemed worthy of no more than a 16mm shot Thomerson-less sequel sporting a budget of $60,000? To fully understand the inner workings of Full Moon during this era, it's perhaps best to go directly to the source, Ohio-born Trancers 6 helmsman Jay Welfel, who alongside producer Johnny Young and Gene Yarborough somehow managed to develop a Trancers sequel under the most impossible of regimes. Welfel's story is a swift, blunt lesson in Hollywood economics. Quote, by the year 2000, the movie marketing was shrinking. So budgets of Full Moon films shrunk down to the point that virtually all the films were being shot on mini DV. During this time, Tim Thomerson got together with the writers of Sliders and tried to set up a Trancers film that the Sci-Fi Channel would fund, perhaps as a TV series. The pitch meeting went badly, and that was the end of that. I spoke to Tim and my producer Johnny Young about trying to raise money to make a Trancers film. The investment group that had funded my films, Iron Thunder and Unseen, really wanted to be able to raise money to make one of the Puppet Master films that I had been signed by Charlie to do. But the word from Paramount legal department was that the situation with the Full Moon films was very complicated. It seems that neither Paramount nor Full Moon could make or release any of the films that Paramount had funded. All the titles were in limbo. So at this time, Paramount was not letting Charles Band make anything that they had any sort of involvement in before. So somewhere around this time, Trancers 3 writer and director went ahead with the scripting of a pilot movie for the prospective Trancers series, part of which was to be set on a space station, with a view to shooting these sequences at the Mexican sets left over, but still standing from Paul Verhoeven's Total Recall movie. Yet still, no investment was forthcoming, and the project once again stalled. The original Trancers was made long before the Full Moon Paramount distribution deal, so although Band could not legally re-release parts 2 through 5, he could venture to create an entirely new Trancers episode. Because remember, the first Trancers was Empire, it wasn't Full Moon. What he could not get away with was to make this another of Full Moon's by that time typical shot on mini DV micro movies. Band needed a little more money to try to do Trancers 6 in a better way. Full Moon's regular production crew, led by former Ohio indie filmmaker J.R. Bookwalter, was initially expected to take up the challenge, but would soon be bogged down with Groom Lake, which was going wildly over budget in Arizona with William Shatner directing. And part of the background of this is, at this time, William Shatner was like the celebrity at Full Moon, and he convinced Charles Band to let him make a movie, this Groom Lake movie, which I've actually never seen. But he just spent millions of dollars making this movie of Charles Band's funds, which was draining all the resources from Full Moon. So Willful says, with a degree of surprise, Charlie put together a deal to get Trancers 6 made, and Johnny Young and I were brought in to budget and make the film. We formed Young Wolf Productions and put together a crew. We wanted to shoot on film 16 millimeter, but still film, as the rest of the Trancers films had been done on film. It was the first shot on film production that Full Moon had been involved with for some time. Full Moon's reaction was one of, wow, if you can do it with this money, please do. We also wanted to shoot for at least 14 days, also a much longer schedule than had been the case for a while. These were our decisions, and Full Moon supported them. One unexpected addition to the Trancers crew, blah blah blah. I'll just go straight down. This crew member had offices at Full Moon at the time, and we saw him on a regular basis. The trouble was that the investor had taken some issue with Full Moon, getting to Borp's point of the businessman angle pissing people off, and the budget was no longer in place. Full Moon did keep us going during production, but then everything stopped for a while during post. We did manage to get some of the footage out of the laboratory and start editing the film, but during the stall period, or the film would really be a mess. Maurice says now that he has left B films forever and will only do large movies, specifically from interacting with Charles Band.
Wow.
And this is the funny thing here. So, remember when we were talking about Trancers 1.5 and how it was lost forever, and then like in 2016 or something, Charles Band magically finds all of this footage? That's the story. But listen to this. So numerous other permutations were worked through in the lead up to filming Trancer 6, most of which ended up being sidelined due to the suffocating restrictive budget. At one point, Jay Welfel toyed with the idea of tracking down the Pulse Pounder segment footage to build a new sequel around. Quote, I talked, and this is like in 2000, the year 2000, by the way, like 16 years before this allegedly was found and released. I talked to Charlie about getting that footage to use in Trancer 6. He said he knew where the film was and actually wrote a note to himself during the meeting. This is the only time I ever saw him write a note based on something I said in a meeting or at any meeting. I said, you should release that if you can. He was, yeah, I never thought of that. Good idea mode. And then I never heard anything about it again. Anyway, the official philosophy was that Tim Thomerson was getting too old, but more importantly, too expensive for Full Moon. Charlie wanted to have Tim in it if possible, but the whole quote-unquote pass the torch thing was Charlie's idea. It was up to all of us to figure out what that would be. The previous script for Trancer 6 was too expensive to do, so a whole new script had to be created. Courtney and I came up with the idea at the same time of it being Death's daughter from his own part 3. Joyner suggested that the film could sort of be like a Lovecraftian The Color Out of Space, with the meteor being the source for Trancers, which sounded good to me. In a very short amount of time, less than 2 weeks, the script was done. We liked it. Charlie approved it. Then during the pre-production, as things shifted around, I added more humor to the film and also shortened the script to accommodate our shrinking budget. So this is all Charles Band's fault. Essentially, Trancer 6 is all of Charles Band's fault. It was bullshit from the beginning, trying to sell it to Blockbuster Video, who then said, nah, or we didn't even watch it. Who knows if he actually ended up making money on any of this thing, but that's the story behind Trancer 6, at least more context. I don't really blame the actress. I don't really blame the filmmakers. You know, knowing the context of what bullshit they were given, it was just a bad idea from the get-go to make this movie, and that's Charles Band's fault.
Yeah, I also like, why are you giving this? Like, I get that William Shatner is a celebrity, but why are you giving him this much money to make? Like, you have properties.
He's William Shatner.
But like, okay,
sure. To your point, Bort, bad businessman.
Yeah.
Bad businessman.
Yeah.
So that's it, everybody. We hated it. Borp kind of liked it, I guess. Steve and I hated this movie. I don't know where we go from here, guys. I was actually thinking like, hey, okay, let's do our ranking, right? How would we rank Trancers 1 through 6? And as I was considering in my head, I'm like, the best is 1, and it just progressively gets worse and worse for me. It's just literally 1 is the best, 1.5, 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you guys have any a different order that you would put the Trancers movies in?
I think that's mostly true, but like 3 is slightly better than 2, 5 is maybe slightly better than 4.
Okay. Borp, do you have a different
I'm
We're
gonna go
splitting here.
controversial here and go 1-3-6.
six?
1-3-6.
6 is their third best?
I'm telling you, I laughed a lot during the film. Like it's like it kind of had like
Wow.
a puppet master versus demonic toys type of quality for me.
Okay. So there you go,
Matt,
folks.
boobs on the screen. Boobs.
No. Oh, I wanted to bring this up. There aren't actual boobs in this. There is a ridiculous sex scene in the middle of this movie. You see her back, and that's it. There are no actual boobs in Trancer 6. There isn't a weird. That was the other thing with Trancers 4 and 5. They try to make it like a weird R-rated thing. Get back to it. There's one shot of gratuitous breasts, and then they just drop F-bombs all the time in those movies. But strangely enough, no, she doesn't actually get naked. You don't see anything here. So
Okay, well, you also played Trancers 4 during that recording episode, so remember to edit
I
that.
fast forwarded beyond that so that I could play. I wouldn't have to deal with it. So
Look
I'm
at
covered,
Matt,
Steve.
planning ahead.
I am planning ahead. I'm working on my mental problems, Steve. I'm planning ahead. What do we watch next, guys? By the time when you listen to us, we are like Christmas. This is your Christmas gift to everybody. Trancer 6. What do we watch next?
As much as Trancer sucks, Tim Thomerson is still cool. I kind of want to watch Dollman.
Dollman? How many Dollman movies are there?
There's only 2 Dollman movies. There's Dollman and Dollman versus Demonic Toys. So
what are the other?
There has to be some movies from this time that never got any sequels. Yes, like if there's any like one-offs we could do.
You want a standalone? Yeah, Matt would know better than I would. Like, what are the Full Moon standalones?
I did post in the chat that Charles Band himself said he would never make a sequel to Seed People. It was the only Full Moon movie he would never make a sequel to. So maybe we check out Seed People. That could be something that we take. Doll Graveyard. I don't think there was ever. I don't think there was a sequel to Doll Graveyard. Okay. Yeah. We'll do Seed People. Leave a comment, folks.
We'll do some one-offs, and then we'll get to Dollman.
Blood Dolls was another one. I don't think there was a sequel to that.
A lot of
a lot of doll movies. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for sticking with us and listening. In 2023, the next or 2024, the next time you hear from us, it'll be 2025, and we are taking a nice break. We need a break, I think, after Trancers. We're going to take a few months break, and then we'll get back into doing some more. But we'll see you in 2025. Hopefully, the world has not imploded by then, and I mean, who knows? Based on whatever happens in the election in November, the world could be, there might not be any more Full Moon Fridays coming after. Who knows? But hopefully we see you alive and well in 2025. Goodbye, everybody. No more Trancers. See you later.
Thank God.